Hi there, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge special 3 hour tour. Not so special, we do that kind of frequently. Let's go grab our friends over on Twitch, however. Here, give me 1 second. Hello, Twitch. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle of USS Enterprise, NCC 1701. There's no letters after it on account of that's not Star Trek. You heard me. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Gonna let the room settle. Got some fun things to talk about tonight, but we're doing the 3 hours for sure because I've had a couple short shows and had to both Monday and Thursday shows had to push back a day this week. So I'm all yours. We'll get through the questions, and if we get through the questions, we'll take some from the chat, or we'll do things like that. Otherwise, things are good. Bean is doing fine, thanks. I picked him up last night. That's why I had to push the Thursday show to Friday. Thursday is the day that Thursday's the day that the vet is open till 8 o'clock. So it's probably once every 4 months or so. He goes down for his blood panels. And yesterday was one of those nights, and it was just a little complicated. So instead of doing a short show, I actually thought about doing two shows, like an hour and a half last night, hour and a half tonight, and I just thought, nah, I think we'll just do a 3 hour tour. So here we are for that. So Bean is doing just fine, thanks for asking. And he's getting to be an older gentleman now. I don't know exactly how old he is. I think he's probably 7 or 8 when I got him in 2010 or 11. So, he's getting up there for a cat. His fur's getting a little thinner. I saw a picture of him from several years ago, and his whiskers looked like somebody put a firecracker in front of his face. Just this explosion of, whiskers everywhere. And his those are getting a little thinner. Lady Hawk says the audio is a bit off from the video. Are you guys having sync problems? Looks more or less okay to me from this end. Yeah, feline pattern baldness, exactly. I'll get some pics for next time, Eric, and we'll see what we can do. So I'm just going to stall for time here a little bit, let the room fill up a little bit. There's a subreddit called Whisker Fireworks. I bet there should be one called Whisker Eyebrows as well. Minor sync trouble. That shouldn't be happening. Yeah, well, I don't like it. I'm trying to figure out what's causing it, and I don't have any idea. We're just gonna have to live with it, I guess. He is a well-fed cat. He's not a fat cat. He's lost some weight, a little bit of weight. It's harder for him to eat. He doesn't have any teeth left. He's just got one tooth down on the bottom. He's got no side teeth and hasn't for a long time. And then he lost his 2 top incisors. I call him my one-tooth tiger. He's a little soldier though, so he's doing as well as can be expected for a gentleman his age, which is about the best all of us can hope for, I think. Looking at the ongoing series of hot mics, I was going to be doing Kash Patel versus the FBI director, but now it's going to be versus the ghost of the FBI director. Now, Weasel resigned, and I'd like to see him investigated by his own agency. I think that would be kind of fun. And overall, things are doing okay. My cat is the president, old man cat. He's an older gentleman. We got 35 in here, and we got about 54 on YouTube. Now, of course, it's a Friday night; it's not a Thursday night, and there you go. So. Yeah, he's had a really good life, and every day that he's around is just another day with the Bean. So, you kind of take him as you can get him, and kind of stay a little philosophical about that. So we're going to get a chance to go through all kinds of questions and talk about all kinds of things. It's been a while since we did a long show, and I'm definitely feeling up for it. So that'd be cool. David Booty says he'd rather be here on a Friday night than with the coolest people in the world. Gotcha. And Lady Hawk says her oldest cat was almost 23. I had a cat named Reno who was about 22, 23. So that's pretty much about it. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you over there on YouTube. Starting to get up to 70, something like that. He does not love lasagna that I'm aware of. He doesn't really love anything. Reno, who I just mentioned, would climb up your leg and out your arm and onto your head and climb upside down, hang off your head to get turkey. He was a turkey-vor. He really, really, really loved his turkey. So it's good to see all the people showing up here, and yeah. So I don't have any particular political rant to start with that I'm aware of. Oh, wait a minute. There is one thing. Let me find it. I got to get the word right. Yeah. Today is the day I learned about Skibidi toilet. How many of you out there know what Skibidi toilet is? Because I hadn't heard jack about it until earlier today, and man, oh man, alive. Yeah, so that's a word that the youngest of the young kids out there uses, Skibidi. Yeah, Eric says, don't get me started about that. It's brain rot. The people that are saying we're getting more or less 50-50, people saying I have no idea what it is, and other people saying, oh my God, why did you bring it up? It is an animation that's gotten 70 million views, I want to say the first one, something like that. And it is just a tune that has the same kind of catchiness as Baby Shark, except that it's got no lyrics. It's skibbity dee, skibbity doo, skibbity da, and it's a man's head coming out of a toilet with these super bizarre expressions. CG animation, very bad CG animation, and they've done 70 or 80 of them now, and it is really brain rot. No, Dave, it's not worse than that, but then nothing is. But it is alarming, and and I'm looking at this, and there's a lot of problems with alphas that are even more pronounced than with the Gen Z in terms of their inability to. Gen Z was raised on YouTube videos, and alphas are raised on YouTube shorts. Let me just lower this a little bit. A little too much headroom here. Teachers are saying, they have to break up their lessons into 3-4 minute pieces. And I got to the point where, there we go, let's show off the USS Enterprise, it's better. Although I'm clipping the corn and we'll split the difference, why don't we? There we go. And so I'm trying to be fair about this. So I asked myself, well, what did we have? I mean, I'm definitely a baby boomer, but I'm late boom. So I kind of catch a lot of Gen X pop culture. For me, it was, like the kind of the out there stuff was Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Crow and Tom Servo and stuff. And that was, wholesome. And then I thought, okay, and then after that, it was Ren and Stimpy, and some of those close-ups of like Ren with the rotten tooth, those were fairly, disturbing. Dr. Demento, exactly, all of that stuff, and so I'm trying to figure out whether or not this Skibidi toilet thing is uniquely weird. But I have to tell you, Kukulin in the YouTube stream says Gen Z's inability to talk clearly. Apparently, this is worse with Alpha. Eric says, first time I saw a Skibidi vid, my first thought was that it'd be a wonder people don't get paranoid when sitting on the toilet that some psycho dude's head might shoot up and bite them in the ass. Well, in the Skibidi toilet universe of the alphas, there are armies and legions of toilets that are marching across a battlefield with the head of these men, and the distortion on the smiles and the eyes. You can see them pulling the vertices. I mean, it's you really have to be in the 3D business to see that it's just a weird vertex pull where everything's like sharp and pointy on the expressions. Yeah, Space Madness and stuff like that was funny. This stuff is just plain bizarre. And then there's like regular people have heads that are closed circuit TV cameras. So everybody's being monitored, and then then something else will come in on like a mech, and then the Skibidi toilets will come rising to the thing and just battle them with lasers and explosions and stuff. I know it makes me sound like I'm 100 years old, but it is, in the words of Crow T Robot, it is genuinely good old fashioned nightmare fuel. It is really, really disturbing. If you have time on your hands while you're watching the show, because we would never have you do that. But you can just go over to YouTube and just search for Skibidi, Skibidi, I think, Skibidi toilet, and you'll see real quick. It's not a realistic looking head. It just looks like really, 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 really bad CG. It's the deal, man. So they say alphas are feeling kind of Skibidi today, or that was a Skibidi crash, or everything is kind of Skibidi, and it doesn't really mean anything. And anyway, you get the idea. So I'm thinking about doing a hot mic show called Brain Rot and the Skibidi Apocalypse, because there's that, and then the other thing that these kids are subjected to, and this is more Gen Z really than the alphas, but still. I have a conservative audience, needless to say. Hey, Clay, good to see you. And so I can't. There are things that I can't even say. But two of the people that Kamala Harris paid to endorse her were musicians, Cardi B and somebody, the Stallion, I forget her name. And they made a song called WAP, and I'm not telling you what that stands for, and I'm certainly not going to tell you the lyrics, but it really is. Megan the Stallion, thank you. Yeah, WAP is genuinely this is what they'll put on the tombstone of Western civilization. This is Megan, sorry. This is the song that they'll play. It is. You just have a hard time believing that it's actually on YouTube, let alone that it was made in the culture. And it's, of course, it's completely, it's just hugely popular. And this is who the attempted president of the United States. If you see Cardi B and Megan the Stallion in WAP on YouTube, and you realize that Kamala Harris recruited both of these people and paid them huge sums of money for their endorsement, you will be really quite shocked. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that the Trump campaign didn't make more of it, because it is genuinely revolting and shocking. Along the lines here of all this other stuff that we had this a couple days ago, this story's been making the news too. One of the most, I think you could probably make a case for this. I really do, that the single most destructive platform in the history of our culture, and I think even more so than TikTok, is OnlyFans. I think OnlyFans is probably doing more damage to this society than than any anything that I see or can imagine. For those of you who are unfamiliar with OnlyFans, what OnlyFans does is it allows young women to become porn stars, because a porn star used to be in porn movies, which were distributed through porn production companies and sent out into VHS form and sold in porn stores. Those days are long gone, and is OnlyFans allows anybody, but really any female at age 18 or over, to have a webcam and then to charge her clients to go as far as she cares to go. And that means all the way if they want to, but the thing of it is that some of these OnlyFans girls are making $3 or $4 million a month. Most of them are just making $20 a month or $50 or whatever. But basically, what's happening is these young women are looking at this as a way to just make some quick cash, and it's out there forever. I mean, they're just completely naked on the internet, and doing the kind of things that you probably wouldn't want your children to see, and certainly wouldn't want your husband to see if you're planning on marrying, somebody who is somebody of some integrity. OnlyFans, man. I mean, I tried it for months to try to supplement the income from our meager income from BillWhittle.com memberships, and yes, I was making a fortune, but I just felt so dirty. I just couldn't face myself. So, man, you throw all this stuff in there, and it is just a toxic brew. And I don't know how they're going to get through it. They don't. I don't know how you grow up exposed to this stuff and not turn out horrifically damaged. And that's why when I did that video when I went to and talked about it on Stratosphere Lounge 2, yeah, Hot Mike has several OnlyFans channels. He's making bank. But then again, Hot Mike is an emotional catastrophe. Hot Mike is just one of the worst people I've ever met. He's just plain awful. But when I did that thing when I went to the local Catholic high school and I talked to Father McTeague, he's got a radio show called Stations of the Cross, and I'm a guest on that probably once a month or so, or every other month. And I told him, I said, listen, Father, for what I learned from going to that Catholic school is that nowadays it's more important that what a school keeps out of a kid's head is more important than what it puts into its head nowadays. I really believe this. I mean, they seem to be well-educated kids, and I'm sure they are well-educated, but the main thing is that the kids I saw seem to have been protected both at home and at school, culturally, through their religion, have been protected from at least the worst of this, because I didn't get any of that toxicity from these kids. I really liked those kids at that high school game, and I don't see any way that you can expose children to WAP or Skibidi toilet or any of this stuff and not have them turn out to be barking, raving mad. And OnlyFans is turning an entire generation of young women into professional. Well, they're prostitutes. I mean, they're doing sex work for money, and they'll scream and howl if you call them that, but that's pretty much the definition of it. They wouldn't be doing it for free, and they're sure not doing it out of love. And it's such a short-term gain at long-term expense, because those videos are out there forever. And the thing that started this conversation was that one of these OnlyFans girls just finished a session where she had sex with 100 guys in the same session. 100. Took 9 hours or something like that. She's going for the record now. She's announced she wants to do 1,000. Think about that. Don't, actually, you know what? Don't think about that. I don't usually go into these territories with this show because it makes me uncomfortable and it makes some of our members uncomfortable. Yeah, can we move on? But yeah, it's just, it's just a complete horrific toxicity pool out there, and so there you go. All right, so I have an announcement to make about the MRI results. So I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that I don't have good news. The good news is that the bad news that I got is probably the least bad news that I could get. I had about 2 weeks to think about it. I had 9 days. I talked to the doctor today. He'd scheduled a conference with me on Monday, and I said, I've been hanging out for 2 weeks after I've been told to go get a brain MRI, and it's been 9 days since I actually got the brain MRI, and I'd kind of like to know what's going on with the brain MRI. Is that all right? Any chance I could find out what the hell's actually going on here? So my general practitioner who ordered up the test, I got about 2 minutes with him on the phone. He's out of town. He's at a conference. Yes, Roadrunner says they found the brain. They had to crank the magnetic fields up. They had to put an MRI inside another MRI to get through the bone. But they did discover a brain on the inside in there. Yeah, that's exactly what they did. So basically, I'll just tell you what he told me. This is coming from the GP, not from a specialist. What he basically said was that they had discovered what he called an artifact in my right hemisphere, and it does not look like it's a tumor. In fact, they're quite sure it's not. But again, he's not the specialist. The specialist is going to take a look at it probably on Monday. It is not a technical artifact. There's an organic abnormality, I think is a term that came up. He immediately told me not to worry, or I might have said not to panic. And and I haven't been worrying. Well, I've been thinking, but I sure haven't been scared. I've been deeply thinking for the last 2 weeks, because 2 weeks is enough time for a guy like me to get on the internet and find out every single thing that could possibly go wrong in your brain, including, what's it called, a glioblastoma or something like that, with a median survival time of 7 to 12 weeks or some horrible stuff like that. So good news is, like I said, it looks like the bad news is the least bad news that you can get bad news for, and still not. It would have been nice if it said no, it's clear, but it's not clear. So what are my symptoms? I don't have any symptoms. This is why I think I'm actually a Lenin brain. This is the thing that bothers me so much, is that I did the tink 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 with Lenin on the Empire of Terror, and it was just so disgusting to me. And now it turns out that me and my buddy Vlad are walking down the same path. So basically, here's the deal. I would have no way of knowing that I had this. It's called. This is the. Let me state again. This is the general practitioner's suspected diagnosis without having seen a specialist yet. So let me just say that this is subject to further, modification down the road. But it looks like it's a case of microvascular ischemic disease, which is congestion in the small blood vessels of the brain. So apparently, what they found was that some of these smaller blood vessels in my brain were a little bit bigger than they should be, which might be a sign of blockage or congestion or something like that. Now, in order to tell a story about the symptoms, I have to tell another story. A story I've told before, so stay with me here on this one. Back when I was, I've told the story many times on Stratosphere Lounge, but back when I was learning how to fly in gliders, I had soloed and I was preparing for the private pilot test, and I put a big blue tarp, which I thought was a big blue tarp, it was about the size of a tablecloth, out on the landing area, because in order to pass the flight exam for your glider license, you had to land at or beyond a certain point and put the wheels down within 400 feet of that point. You couldn't be 1 foot short, not 1 foot short, but you had to be within 400 feet. So I was setting up for a landing, and I'm looking down there at the dirt, and I cannot find this tarp to save my life. I thought it'd be bright blue. I thought it'd be easy to see from orbit. But I was looking, and I couldn't see it. And so instead of looking down the runway when I land, or we actually land on the dirt. So instead of looking at the horizon, using my peripheral vision to get a good sense of my attitude, I was looking down, and you can't see jack looking down. So the Grobe glider I was in has a center wheel. It's got a nose wheel and a tail wheel. And I landed on the center wheel, and the nose wheel hit. And when the nose wheel hit, it bounced, and that increased the angle of attack on the wings, and I went right up again. And the problem is I couldn't go around because I didn't have an engine. So I'm 25, 30 feet in the air, and I'm pretty much out of airspeed, and I'm looking at myself going back down again on the other side of this roller coaster thing, and I try to pull back a little bit to soften the blow, and it bounces again. So I'm in this kind of bam, 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 bam. It's called a pilot-induced oscillation, where you're trying to dampen out the effects of this, but the actual impact forces your hand to go in the other direction, makes it worse. So boom, 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 and I'm just like, holy cow, the whole world's just coming apart, man. And there's a little twist ring on the variometer that tells us where we're going up and down, and this thing falls off of the airplane, just ting, 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 bam, 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 bam. And all I remember was saying, keep the wings level, you idiot. Just keep the wings level. Don't dig a wing in. If you dig a wing into the ground, you're going to cartwheel. You don't have an engine. It's going to slow down eventually. It's going to stop. Just ride it out. So I rode it out and coasted over to the side, got off the dirt runway down back towards the shack where we were all hanging out, all the crew and stuff. And a couple of the instructors come running out, and everybody's, kind of like, oh my God, it's like, and I'm feeling like, just feeling like such a D-bag, just like an idiot, I probably had 10 hours, I would guess, total time, something like that. So I go to get out of this glider, and I put my hands on the canopy rail to stand up, and I can't stand up. My legs just not going along with me, man. They're just not playing. So I sat back down again, and they came out and asked me how I was. I said I was fine, and I was sure I'd destroyed the glider, but we took a look at it. We didn't pop a tire. There were no cracks in the gel coat finish. There was no structural damage. They took it down, took a close look at it. So I just banged up the plane, but I didn't do any permanent damage to the plane. I didn't do any permanent damage to me. Now I was rooming with head tow pilot and my flight instructor at the time, but my flight instructor wasn't there. He was out on another job. And so I got into the office where we would hang out, and I was just sitting there, and I got him on the phone, and his name was Jeff Larkin, and I said, I'm coming back to the brain. I said, hey, Jeff, how you doing? He said, hey, what's up? I said, I think I just crashed the airplane. He said, okay. Are you all right? I said, yeah, I'm okay. He said, what about the plane? He said, well, plane seems to be okay too. He said, well, if you didn't break yourself and you didn't break the airplane, then you didn't crash the airplane. You had a, subpar landing. Like, good landing is one you can walk away from, and a great one is where you get to use the airplane again. And so what he told me was, he said, you don't appreciate this now, because I was really shaken up, man. I really was. It was, not only was I embarrassed and ashamed and scared, I was also, I took some physical jolts. It was a pretty, I hit pretty hard. But he said to me at the time, I never forgot it. He said, and I've used this with other people several times. He said, listen, you don't realize it, but you just got unbelievably lucky. really lucky. I said, I don't feel that lucky. I feel kind of unlucky, if you really want to know right now, Jeff. I don't feel lucky at all. He said, no, you're really lucky. And here's why you're lucky. You're lucky because you just got the living hell scared out of you, and it didn't cost you anything. Usually when people get the living hell scared out of them, they have to pay a price for it. But you got the living hell scared out of you, and the plane's okay and you're okay. I said, I'm listening. He said, you're not going to make that mistake again. I said, no, I don't believe I will. I said, next landing you do and every other landing you do for the rest of your life, you're going to be looking at the horizon. Yes, I am. And sure enough, he's right. And I had been in, I've been in much hairier situations and made much better landings because of that one time when I was looking down when I should have been looking ahead. So scared myself real bad and didn't have to pay a real big price for it. Right now, as things stand right now, that's what it looks like is the case with this MRI and this microvascular ischemic disease. I mentioned on the show that I had what I thought was the detached retina probably 3 weeks ago, where I was just sitting here and all of a sudden the vision in my left eye, it was like a wavy curtain on my left eye, and it was real dark below that curtain, and the little, starry, and and I thought, that's not good. I thought it had a detached retina. And I got up and walked around, and then the vision in my eye came back within, 30 seconds. The dark curtain on the bottom of my eye, in my left eye. And this is the point, the larger point for all of you who are tuning in now, because I've had this opportunity many times over the course of these 400 or so Stratosphere Lounges, and I talk about my medical history often because I've had people tell me it saved their lives. So listen carefully if you can. When I get a symptom of something, I go find out what it is, because it would have been very, very easy for me to just say, hey, it's just this transitory thing, and it's gone, and it went away right away. My left eye, there was no pain ever at any time. My left eye was a little out of focus that night, but by the time I woke up the next day, everything was back to normal. And I just very easily could have just said, yeah, it was just, blood sugar or something like that. But it didn't feel like blood sugar. So I went down and told the doctor about it, and the doctor heard about that, and he said, I want a brain scan MRI, and I want one right now. So I went and got one. And I found out, thank you very much, Clay. I appreciate it. And so I went down and did something about it. So what we have now is a situation where it was detected really, really early, and I think it was. I don't remember the dimensions on the thing, but the doctor was constantly reassuring me, and I told him, and I'm telling you, and this is a personal thing. I guess people are built differently. Natasha, for example, cannot bear to go in for diagnostics. She's just terrified of what they're going to find, and it's like pulling a stump out of the swamp to get her to go to the doctor. I'm just the opposite. But my point is this, and I think it's really an important point. The sooner you get to a doctor about symptoms, if you have a chest pain or pain in your arm, or people have talked about ocular migraine, or retinal migraine, it was almost certainly caused by a restriction of blood flow to the brain. And that event, which is about 3 weeks old now, may be what is showing up in the MRI. I don't know if it's fair to call that a mini stroke or whatever, but it certainly had no effect on me, no effect on my speech, ability to smile, all of face muscles. If it hadn't been for that vision thing, I wouldn't have detected it. If they Lefko says, if they diagnose you with a brain cloud, don't buy it. Sue, you'll get to meet Meg Ryan. and she's not that hot anymore. Sure, you'll get to meet Meg Ryan, and she's not that hot anymore, but the volcano still is. Yeah, I think in Joe versus the volcano, he got diagnosed with brain clot. So here's where I'm kind of going with this. The only thing that I couldn't bear to hear, and I spent the last 2 weeks thinking, some pretty serious thoughts, and I was thinking something neurological happened. Here's a list of all the things that can go wrong with your brain, and none of them are good, and some of them are real bad. And so for the last 2 weeks, I've been living with this. Forgive me for saying so. I'm just going to come out and say it. I've been living with this pretty bravely. I mean, I spend a fair amount of time preparing myself for news like this because I think it's part of life. It's a part of life that we don't talk about in this society, and we don't deal with death in this society at all. We just pretend it doesn't happen. But I'm not aware of anybody getting out of this planet alive sooner or later. It's gonna catch up with all of us. Yes, Marusha Dark helpfully points out to the new people in YouTube that I've been diagnosed with brain rot. I have been diagnosed with brain rot. It's really it. So I determined early that the one thing I could not bear to hear, I could bear, because you have no choice. If you go down there and you get a terminal diagnosis, which I didn't get, at least so far. If you get a terminal diagnosis, there's nothing you can do about that, but how you handle it is something you can do something about. So I was determined to just look. If this guy's going to tell me I've got this god awful glioblastoma or whatever, it's like, okay, then we're gonna show people how this is done. But my point is this: the only thing I could not bear to hear would be to go to a doctor's office and have a doctor say to me, Bill, if you had come in when you'd first had your symptoms a year ago or 18 months ago or whatever, we could have done something about it. But now it's just nothing we can do now. So once again, I've talked about this before. You'd think it would speed up my work on the colonies. You have no idea how much thinking about these kind of things I've done in the last 2 weeks without mentioning it on any of the shows or really talking about it. It makes you realize a lot of things. I'm just trying to catch up. Just in the comment section, Steve Morin says, 2 years ago I had 6 strokes, lost eyesight in the left eye, fully recovered, and doing fine today. See, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. God bless you, Steve, and thank you for that helpful and hopeful message. So if left untreated, this can only get worse. It's not going to get any better. If left untreated, it will eventually lead to likelihood of stroke or dementia and cognitive decline, because you're just putting more and more goop up there. So the good news is that I got the least bad news I could get, but the real bad news is my life is about to change dramatically, because as I was reading about the treatment for this, they basically say the only real treatment at this stage, because they're tiny little blood vessels, is to mitigate the risk factors. I also found out I was pre-diabetic, so I've got high blood sugar, I've got triglycerides are a little high, so I am going to have to pretty much change my life from the ground up. I was looking at mitigation for this microvascular ischemic disease, and it said you're going to need to cut back on sugar, saturated fat, and salt. And I said out loud, but that's all I eat. I'll starve. That's my entire diet. That's all I eat is sugar, saturated fat, and salt. How am I supposed to go on without my sugar, saturated fat, and salt? I don't think I've gone I don't think I've had a single meal since I've been a wee baby off the bottle that wasn't nothing but sugar, saturated fat, and salt. So this is the thing that's actually occurred to me in the last hour or two. I had a chance to talk to Phil and Bobby. God bless them. They're just the best people in the world. Just before I went on the air, and they gave me some great advice. They've made dietary changes too, and after I hung up with them, I realized, you know what? I turned 65 back in April, and it made me eligible for AARP, the American Association of Retired People. I got my insurance got switched to Medicare without much choice on my part, and I thought, I don't feel old. This is the first time I've felt not even old. This is like it's just now dawning on me that my carefree youth is over. I can't just dip on down to McDonald's anymore. I don't do a lot of McDonald's. I do a fair amount of milkshakes, and I get plenty of exercise. I mean, I walk a lot. For example, I'm here in the studio, usually 6, 7, 8 hours a day, sometimes 10 hours a day, sitting in this chair. But fortunately, when I'm done with the editing and the shooting, I take a walk from here to the elevator, which takes me down to the garage, and then I get to walk from the elevator to my car. Then I drive home, but I also get to walk from the car all the way to the front door. And once I'm inside the house, I walk around inside the house too. I think I can say, I'm not trying to show off or brag or anything, but I can say with confidence that I probably get a good at least 35 steps in a day. And that's going to change. Mike Rowe walks 10 miles a day. That son of a bitch. That's the first thing I'm going to ask him about, that rotten bastard. Victoria says, go on a high lean protein all 3 meals a day. 2 cups Vegas each meal. Cut back on carbs. Walk 2 miles a day. No junk food at all. My sugar's gone. You know what? It's like a trinity. It's like a trifecta. And what I want to say is, I could probably find a way to give up one of these things. And if my life depended on it, I could maybe give up 2. But to give up all 3, then it's like, well, your life does depend on it, you moron. Honestly, I'll tell you what. Let me keep the sugar and the salt, and I'll give up the saturated fats. How's that? God, is that no? You got to lose all 3. It's like, oh God, I'm gonna be eating leeks and carrots for the rest of my life. And hey, Jim, good to see you. And it's not fair. It's not fair. Lavco 92, how tall is the average American diabetic? The same height as a healthy average American, minus a foot. I worked in a hospital lab, forgive me. Well, I'm not going there either. So I am pork I can do, beef I can do. I'm gonna do the carnivore thing, man. I'm gonna be I'd be living. I could live on ribs and I almost said fried chicken. Stupid cholesterol, and probably have to be skinless baked chicken, which is might as well be eating frickin' celery. But yeah, so the whole thing is like I've spent 2 weeks thinking about all the horrible things that can happen to me, and it looks like those horrible things aren't going to happen. Again, I have to preface this by saying this is the preliminary report, but it doesn't look like there's going to be radiation or chemo, any of that stuff. And my main concern, needless to say, throughout all of this, obviously I was concerned about my wife. I was concerned about the membership and the job and my future and the colonies and all these other things. All these things were swirling around in my head. But the one thing that I was obsessed about, needless to say, was that they would have to shave my head for the surgery, which would be catastrophic. Turns out that's probably not going to have to happen. So I know you're all breathing a sigh of relief to hear that the anime hair is not in any hurry of going anywhere. So in any event, I plan to be here for a long time. One of the things that made me feel a lot better was when I read that that this is age-related disease, and that people in their 90s, by the time you get to be 90 years old, everybody has it. So I thought, well, right now I just want to make it to 90. That'd be nice. Yeah, that's the one, Don Vickery, glioblastoma. That was the one that I read about. I just went, oh, that is what a perfect name for that condition. Is it's a extremely aggressive, brain tumor, and I spent some time thinking about that. But then I'm realizing, well, you don't have any of the symptoms. You have no history of cancer in the family. I have skin cancer, but that's due to a tanning booth, and just anyway. So I kind of remind you of Garth from Wayne's World. Well, there's never been a kinder word said to me. Chris Lineberry says, Bill, I haven't been to a doctor since 1983 when the sick bastard put his hand down the front of my pants to check if I was circumcised. Well, that's interesting. You should have followed my lead. Could become avoid doctors and be happy. Well, I'm gonna take the opposite advice here. I'll just wrap this up and we'll get into the questions. But I will just wrap this up by saying I'm very glad I resisted the temptation to ignore that vision thing, and I'm very glad that I got on it the next day, and that I'm glad that I had the courage to just go down and get it looked at, because unless see, typical addict behavior, that uncured addict part of my head is saying, so on Monday I'm going to have a conversation with my a lengthy conversation with my general practitioner. Then I'm going to have a conversation with the neurologist. So that's probably at the earliest. If that's the earliest, it's going to be probably late next week. So my addict brain is saying that gives me a week to do nothing but drink more of those peanut butter frickin' smoothies and do all the milkshakes I possibly can. And I'm not joking about this. This thing is pulling me real hard. Like, you're going to have to give all of this up, but you don't have to give it up. You just right now, Bill, you got this problem in your head, so it's not going to get any better. Every day that goes by is another day to pump some more, clots up there. So probably should just, the desire to have a sugar saturated fat and salt bachelor party is almost overwhelming. And when I said that was all I ate, I'm not kidding. A lot of times if I was going to go light on dinner or coming into work or something, I'd just march on down to McDonald's. I'd get a Sprite, chocolate shake, and a side of fries. Delicious. John Pignette did a classic comedy routine about this. He died of a heart attack because he was 400 pounds or 5 or something like that. But his comedy about eating was hilarious, and his doctor said, I'm concerned you might be allergic to gluten. Do you eat a lot of gluten? What's gluten? And he said, I eat a lot of everything. I'm probably mostly made up of gluten. He said, gluten-free food is just so terrible tasting. He said they ought to have a gluten spread that you can put on this gluten-free bread so it tastes like bread again. Gluten spread. Oh, nay. He was joking about it, and then he died in his 30s. He doesn't look. He certainly wasn't. I don't think he was out of his 40s. So I don't want that to happen. So I have a lot of temptations and a lot of pulls towards self-destructive behavior, but this one I'm taking really seriously. I'm just really taking it seriously. I'm going to be, doing that. And Catherine K says, Bill, read Dr. Perlmutter's book, Grain Brain, mainly about grain and Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, but blood flow and deposits are also impacted. Phil and Bobby recommended Dr. Perlmutter's books. Talked about one called Dropping Acid, about how your uric acid is, which is elevated on my last blood test. So Asa Findi asked the question of the night. This is the question that should have been asked at the beginning of the night, and that is, what about booze? I don't know. I don't do a lot of booze, but boy, you want to talk about a time for needing a shot, this would pretty much do it. Leeks and carrot for life, hooray. Yep. I'm gonna show up with a shirt. My new T-shirt's just gonna say, "Just shoot me." It's gonna say, that's all I'm gonna wear. I'm gonna buy 25 or 30 copies of a T-shirt, and it just says, "Just shoot me," and that's gonna be my uniform from now on. So, anyway, that's the MRI story, Gangaroos, as it sits now. I'll have some more information probably by Monday night. I'll talk with my GP at a little more length, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot more information from him. And then, with any luck, we'll talk to a neurologist who will take a look at the MRIs and say, yeah, that's what it looks like. And then he's going to tell me to change my lifestyle. I don't mind the walking, to be honest with you. I like walking, and so I don't get the best thing. Thank you very much. Was it Bike with Love says election night was the best ever. Thank you. I had a lot of fun that night too. It's the last thing I'll say on this subject, and then we'll get into the questions. But my friend Steve Stipp, who Phil and Bobby know from the planetarium days, put on a lot of weight as he got older. I mean, a lot of weight. And I've said this before, but I still think it's the funniest thing I ever heard with my own ears. I laughed for about 20 minutes in the car after we were driving along, and he was my best friend growing up. And I said, Steve, dude, you are just way too heavy, man. And this was 25, 30 years ago. It's way too heavy, dude. And you need to get some exercise. And he turned to me and he said, I'm in no condition to exercise. And I still find that to be the funniest thing I think I've ever heard in my entire life. So we'll see. It seems like it's a good time for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be getting on the food bandwagon and banning Fruit Loops so that, I can't have them. So anyway, that's that. We'll see. Johnny Walker and a blood thinner. That sounds great. Yeah, so before we get to the questions, Donald Trump is on the cover of Time magazine as Man of the Year. That must have stung, huh? That must have stung them quite a bit. Thank you very much for all the kind words and the thumbs up and the prayers and everything. I'm going to be just fine. I probably got, if it's in the brain, I'm probably looking at some I went to get my heart checked 11 years ago, and the guy said, relax, kid, you're going to live forever. That was actually 13 years ago. And that's when I started drinking all of the peanut butter smoothies. So I've probably got some circulatory issues that I need to address as well. And at least with those, you can do, angioplasties or things like that. If it's bad enough, it's probably not bad enough, because I don't have any symptoms. One of the positive things about this, Bobby Trick, Phil's wife, mentioned this on the phone call just a little while ago. She said, at first it's going to be brutal, but then when you get on these highly nutritious diets, you won't believe how good you feel, and you'll look back at the time you spent in this coma, and you won't believe you were able to function with your blood sugar doing the roller coaster ride. Chris LSR says, Bill, do you remember Dan and Larry from the planetarium? Dan and Larry sounds vaguely familiar, but I can't say. Boy, Dan especially. Those names do ring a bell, but it's been a long time. In any event, all right, let's find out what's going on over in the Stratosphere Lounge members forum. Anyway, thank you for listening to my true tale of adventure here, and maybe they'll need to put me in an MRI inside another MRI inside a third MRI. Who knows? But in any event, I'll keep you guys posted. I'm actually feeling chipper and full of piss and vinegar. Well, I'm not so sure about the vinegar. Let's see. And turkey basted with gunpowder. We used to call them walking bird. Yams basted with gunpowder. For you Simpson fans out there. Yeah, but I don't get to be carefree, happy-go-lucky. Yeah, what could go wrong? Stupid body, stupid aging. I see young people, especially healthy young children, and I just think, I want their telomeres. I want their telomeres. I want their telomeres. So unfair. Long telomered sons of bitches walking around like that. Who do they think they are? Let me drag this puppy over here-ish. Yes. 6 questions. Well, I said we're going to do a 3-hour tour, and we're going to do a 3-hour by God tour, and we're not even an hour into it, so we may have a lot of time to kill. Worst news you could get is you've been diagnosed with Bill Whittle syndrome, says Lapco92. My God. No, not that. Too late to do anything about the dementia. I don't know why I find that funny, since it was one of the things that killed my mom, but I just did find that a little bit hilarious. All right, here we go. Moving on to bluer skies. From our friend Jacob Belchuk. Hail, Bill. This week I listened to Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin talk about their journey from liberalism to conservatism, as much as those words mean anything nowadays. They described the left leaving them, not them leaving the left. Yeah, I feel similarly, although I just didn't even know what the left and the right was. I just went where everybody else. I just stood in the same line everybody else stood in. The implication there is that back in the 80s or 90s, at some unstated time frame, the left was the place to be for free speech and so-called liberal values. But when I look back through history, I see the same anti-human, anti-liberty, parasitic, demonic evil of leftism running straight through the Democratic Party all the way back to the 3/5 clause. Yes, the Democratic Party is a cesspool of repression and racism. The Confederates were the Democratic Party leaving the Union. The Jim Crow laws were written by Democrats. The Ku Klux Klan was founded by Democrats to keep black Republicans down. And, yes. But I think there's a difference between liberalism and leftism. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for JDoc. 3 hours, take my money. I'll take it. I will. Thank you for the super chat. So liberalism and leftism, two different things. And a lot of people have said, the liberals have co-opted, the left has co-opted the word liberal, which is, it's a good word. It means freedom lover, basically. But they are not that anymore. That's an absolute fact. Let me see if I can just set my cogitation spectacles. Yeah, that's probably a little better. Okay, I made the font bigger so that I can get almost a full word across this gigantic screen I have here. This shows itself in the belief that these men. This shows itself in the belief from these men that we need a balance of leftism within a society, while the right establishes some barriers where the left ought not to go. But if leftism is poison and evil, then why should we allow any of it? Everywhere I look, all I see from the left is suffering and misery by the same kind of people saying the same satanic thing. I have power over you, and because of that, your existence is for my benefit. Is there merit to this idea of an ideological duality in society? How much liberalism is too much liberalism? Because none at all, and kill it with fire if it shows up, sounds like a great plan to me. What say you? It's a great question. I think we can probably find an answer to this question if we redefine our terms here. And the affair without the glasses just didn't last very long. the only terms I found that are consistent across time and language and all the rest of it is collectivists and individualists. That's how I split the atom. Um, uh, the the Soviets were collectivists. America as designed was a place for individualism on Earth. The Constitution is designed to protect the individual because the founders had the insanely brilliant idea that instead of trying to protect classes or try to protect races or parties or incomes or whatever, if you protect the individual, then everybody's protected. You don't have to worry about protecting classes or races or parties or skin color or height or anything. As long as you protect the individuals, that's great. So that's individualism. It's the collectivists that have this genetic defect. We may be the ones with the genetic defect. Collectivism has been here from the beginning of the human species, and most social animals are hierarchical and have, alpha baboon and all the rest of it. By the way, there's I mentioned this I don't know, a couple months ago, I think now. A true story about a baboon pack that was dominated by this alpha male and bit the living hell out of anybody who tried to challenge him and basically had sex with all the female baboons, and all the young male baboons were left out of the picture, and everybody's generally miserable. And then somebody decided to do something about this troop of baboons, so they put out poison, let's just say bananas, I guess it was bananas, poison fruit of some kind. So what happened was all of the aggressive baboons, the alphas, went in there and ate the poisoned food before anybody else could get to it. So what happened was, in this one baboon troop, all of the alphas were taken out. And the baboon troop lived happily ever after for like 40 years, until eventually that kind of dominance, and control came back. I think that's kind of funny and kind of interesting, actually. So if we reframe your question as not so much left or right or liberal or conservative, but collectivist and individualist, then I am with you 100%. How much collectivism is too much collectivism? Because none at all, kill it with fire. If it shows up, sounds like a great plan to me. It sounds like a great plan to me too. Having other people telling you what to do is what we are against. And just to chuck this out there for those thousands of liberals that watch this show on a regular basis, who are then saying, well, then how come you're anti-abortion? How do you justify that? Because it's my body, my choice, and it's like, I'm 100% behind your body, your choice. I think that's exactly correct, 100%. But it's not your body, and we're talking about abortion. It's in your body. It didn't get there. It's not a growth. You didn't make it on your own. You made a decision, and it's got different DNA, and so yes, your body, your choice, and that body's choice too. So it's consistent, morally consistent, with conservatism to be able to say we'd like to be left alone, please. Rusha Dark says individuals have the defect of being hyperatomized and not coming together when it's time to come together. I think that the that individualists come together when that there is a threshold where their individual survival is dependent on working with other individuals. And I thought we had that balanced really much perfectly in this country, in terms of the country's wars and in terms of how things operated on the frontier, and everybody was independent, but everybody helped each other out because it was in their interest to do so. Be nice if you can call somebody, send your 6-year-old son on a 9-hour horseback ride to go get help because the Indians or the wolves are coming, and if they come to help you, you go to help them. So basically, that's pretty much it. Do we justify conservatism telling everyone what to do? We don't want to tell people what to do. Let's take the trans movement. I'm speaking for myself here. That's one of the reasons why I like being a conservative, is there is no official conservative platform. Everybody gets to disagree. It's like herding cats. It's not like you can get kicked off of the conservative reservation because you happen to believe that, let's say, global warming is an existential threat. If you believe that, then convince me. But this business about telling other people what to do is what it really, is what it comes down to. I have no desire to tell trans people what to do. If you're my Aunt Betty and you want to call yourself my Uncle Joe, then that's fine with me, and I'll probably go along because I love my Aunt Betty. And now, if you want me to call you Uncle Joe, I'll call you Uncle Joe. I don't want to tell you what to do. But when you tell me I have to agree with you that you are a real biological male now, and that I have to reinvent the language to create new pronouns just because it makes you comfortable, and it's my obligation to change the English language in order to make you feel comfortable, that's where I get off the train. Now you're telling me what to do. I don't know any conservatives who basically don't have this opinion. This is why when you hear the left doing their wailing and moaning and gnashing of teeth after Trump won about how all of them are gonna, you won't be able to be gay anymore, or I'm gonna wake up a slave, or all the rest of it, and gay marriage is gonna disappear. It's like, nobody's talking about that. Ship has sailed. I don't know any conservatives. I've never heard a conservative, and I hang out in conservative circles and have spoken at well over 100 conservative events. I've never once heard anybody say anything to the effect of, we got to get rid of these gay people or put them in camps or convert them or anything. It's just not real. A liberal in West North Carolina, Roger Amjad, said, was amazed at all the conservatives that came to the rescue after Helene. Yes, and those conservatives knew that liberal voted for Kamala Harris. And there was Bill Maher read an excerpt from an article in either New Yorker or the New York Times about a liberal family that moved to upstate New York surrounded by Trump people, and they could not believe how kind they were and how they helped them look for missing dog it's what they believe is just fiction, and it's narcissism. It's narcissism. It's like, we're confronted with this existential evil, and only I can stand up to it. I don't know how many of you have seen the clips of this woman from Coeur d'Alene, of all places, maybe my favorite place in the world. This woman's a hairdresser, and she put up and she's a Kamala Harris fan. She put up this big post saying, if you're a Trump supporter, I want nothing to do with you. I don't stand for racism, and I don't support a rapist, and I'm here to defend the rights of gay people to have gay marriage and all the rest of it, and all the rest of this straw man argument that nobody's even talking about. And then she started losing customers. Oh, if I have to go work at Chipotle, then I'll go work at Chipotle. And then she started losing more customers. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to go work at Chipotle. And I'm thinking to myself, well, when you get to Chipotle, lady, and you've lost your hair salon because you've insulted all of these people openly twice, when you get to Chipotle, people are going to come into Chipotle, they're going to be wearing MAGA hats, and you're going to have to serve those people at Chipotle. What the hell is the matter with you? Marusha Dark says Trump was the first pro-gay POTUS. He referred to gay marriage as settled law. Not even Obama did that. Yeah. So they're just projecting what they would do if they had absolute power. This is the thing that's most alarming about leftists, is when you listen to what leftists say Trump is going to do, conservatives hear this and we go, that's ridiculous. If Trump did any of these things, we conservatives would go get him out of office with our rifles. If he actually became a dictator and actually started dictating law and abolished the Congress and started arresting Rachel Maddow because you didn't like what Rachel Maddow said, if he did that, we'd throw him out of office. You wouldn't have to wait for you to wring your hands and cry and clutch your pearls. The people with the guns would go and get him out of office if he started to do the things you said he's going to do. But what it tells you that this is what they fear, because this is what they would do if they had just come into absolute power. This is what they would do. They want to cancel everybody. They want to lock up the opposition. They're horrible people. Horrible people. So to the essence of your question, despite what Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin, both of whom I have an enormous amount of respect for, but they're wrong on this one. There is no. Natasha is is this way as well. Bill, you need to see the other side of the story. You need to see both sides of the story. Now, on some level, that's really important. You do need to see both sides of the story. You need to have an open mind. You need to stay away from, being an echo chamber and just regurgitating the same, tired kind of opinions that everybody else around you has. They're just tired opinions because they've worked for a long time, and that's why they do it. So it's good to listen to the voice that's saying, it's an uncomfortable voice to listen to, but it's an important voice. But there are times when when I get into a discussion with Natasha, and I say, honey, I believe in absolute good and absolute evil, and I don't believe in a balance between the two. I don't believe that I believe that there is a balance between the two, but I don't believe that I have to be balanced about it. I'm a warrior for good. I'm one of the good guys. I don't have to be 50% bad guy. There's plenty of 100% bad guys out there that need to be, dueled with, and I don't get this. We need, it's a combination of this and that. No, it's like conservatives are about constitutional protections and being left alone and being responsible for your actions. There's no way to change that or mitigate it without making it worse. This is why we live in a republic. You see, if you live in a perfect republic, you don't need democracy. I've said this many times, but I think it's a damn clever thing to say, frankly. If you live in a perfect republic where everybody's rights are protected, then all a democracy can do is screw it up. You can vote yourself out of your constitutional protections. The problem is that these people deal with such rhetorical intelligence that they'll start putting periods and commas into the Constitution that aren't there, and they'll read words that come from the Constitution. They just don't finish the sentence. And we're too lazy to police them on it. So we get what we deserve on that one. I think, everything about the left seems to me to be about, ultimately it is the cult of narcissism to me. Basically what leftism says is, I want to be able to do everything I want to all the time without consequences. And furthermore, if somebody is doing something I don't like, I want to be able to stop that. I want to have the power to stop that. It's all about me. This person makes me uncomfortable, so I want them to go away. I want to be able to do this because it's convenient for me. There's no absolute right or wrong. There's no absolute values, no absolute morals. Whatever, it's situational morality, and whatever I want to do right now is just fine. And who are you to tell me? And who are you to judge? And blah, 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 blah. No, you're miserable. Jim Carrey, who's undergone a very strange sort of a metamorphosis, and I have mixed feelings about Jim Carrey, but who am I to judge? But Jim Carrey said, it's a shame that not everybody in the world can be incredibly rich and famous and popular like he is. Because if they could, then everybody would realize that that's not the answer. Which I thought was a profound thing to say. Carrey realized, spent his whole first half of his life, or the first third of his life anyway, saying, one day I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to be popular, I'm going to be a movie star, I'm going to be recognized everywhere. And he did all of those things, and he realized that is not it. You cannot fill the hole that's inside you with stuff that's outside you. You can only fill it in from within. So I thought, good on you, Jim Carrey. That's a message, and you're one of the people in a position to deliver it in such a way that people would listen, because you've done all these things. Elaborate. So, yeah. So anyway, hopefully that did it for that one for you there, Jacob. Moving on, we got Road Rider here. First, best thoughts to Bean. Thank you very much. You've already covered this in your opening, I'm sure, but if you have not, release the drones. Bottom line up front. Are we getting played reacting to Jersey drones? Okay, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I don't have the faintest idea what people are talking about with the drones. I really don't. I've seen a couple of people talking about drones in the comment section. I don't know what the drone thing is. Bottom line up front, Bluff, are we getting played reacting to Jersey drones? I don't know what a Jersey drone is. I asked a friend from San Diego who happens to build large U.S.-made drones. Lapco again, I'm not an ist or a phobe. I hate everyone. I can relate to that, brother. I'm also not going to go on a spree and risk eternal damnation over you rebards, so get over yourselves. All right. The big drones over New Jersey. Oh, you know what? Natasha and I drove out to, we drove to Sedona, and we were going through this small town, and there was something in the sky, and we didn't know what it was. It wasn't a helicopter. It was like it was almost like Close Encounters. It was just bright lights up there, and it was like somebody was flying a bus over this tiny intersection in this tiny, tiny, tiny little town. Bus-sized drones flying over New Jersey. There are reports of an Iranian mothership launching these drones. We saw one. I'd never heard of it before. I'd completely forgotten about it, probably because it was just too weird to remember. But we were in the middle of this town at about 10 o'clock at night, just going through this town on the way out to Sedona. And there was this bright light at this intersection, and we looked up, and up in the sky was, I couldn't see much of it, just looked like a flying bed frame, mattress frame, and it was the size of a bus. I think it's a drone is much more likely than a flying saucer, because or a alien intelligence, because I've seen people fly drones. No, I don't want to report one of these. We're having a great Close Encounters in conversation in the Twitch comment section. Aries 31, you want to report a UFO over? No, we don't want to report one of those. Oh, and I never realized it was Air East 31. I always thought it was Aries 31. No, Air East makes a lot more sense. Aries 31, we should report a UFO. That was an actual air traffic controller, by the way. Just like with Arlie Ermy, it was the only guy who could play an actual Marine drill instructor, was a Marine drill instructor. And the guy who played the mission control guy in 2001: A Space Odyssey was an actual Air Force mission controller. But the guys, my friend Steve Stipp was an air traffic controller in the Air Force and in civilian world, and he said that they got that scene just perfect, and they did. They got it exactly right. So back to the question. As a friend from San Diego who happens to build large-size U.S.-made drones and robotic dogs and operate them on contract to the oil industry, telecoms, and private security companies, his simple answer to my question, should I be worried, was, nah. If those drones were nefarious, there'd be no nav lights. Somebody wants these to be seen. Well, there you go. In the waning days of this administration, where everyone with a D will be getting a preemptive pardon, are they playing us for suckers with these flying squirrels? In other words, are we seeing these things to take our eyes off of what's going on behind the curtain? I don't know. I saw one, and it was impressive, but it wasn't so impressive that I remembered to even talk about it on the Stratosphere Lounge show once I got back. So, Let's Go Brandon says, Let's Go Brandon. What a great group. One crashed on hang on a second. One crashed on a highway, so we know there are drones. The FBI has no idea whose they are, if they are hostile. All right. So I'm going to have to pass on the drones and do some more research on flying bus-sized drones. But you know, a bus-sized drone is not a whole lot bigger than a Jetson. You know, so it's undoubtedly, I would imagine it's flying prototype, proof of prototype for a multi-passenger quadcopter-y kind of transportation. There's a serious market for this, you know, air taxi business. And Burt Rutan did a detailed analysis of the available amount of landing space in New York City and whether there would be enough space for air taxis to function economically, given the number of people that would be on the streets and would conceivably want to use the service. It was fascinating, as usual, with Burt. I wouldn't mind having a Jetson. That looked like it'd be kind of fun. actually. So sorry about that. I've got nothing to say about the drones other than, okay, release the drones. Eli Noor. Hello, Eli. Good to see you. What do you believe it says about the culture that the United Healthcare CEO killer is being celebrated like a hero, while Daniel Penny is called a murderer? If politics is downstream of culture, are we headed in the right direction? Well, we're definitely headed in the right direction. This election and the left is just dissolving in front of our eyes. Trump said by the time we get to the end of his term, we'd be tired of winning. I'm almost tired of winning already. He hasn't even gotten inaugurated yet. I think that this deification of the murderer is a great example of the left. So let me get into this, because this actually is an interesting distinction between the left and the right. I can see how, if it turned out that you had a insurance claim that was denied by an insurance company and you lost somebody, I don't even know if the killer had this situation happen to him, but let's just say hypothetically, you lose your wife or your baby girl or something because the insurance doesn't come through. I'm not entirely sure that. I mean, I know this sounds naive, but if it turns out that, for example, there was a true story apparently how one of these insurance carriers was saying that if it's a 5-hour operation and it goes on for 7 hours, then the patient is responsible for the extra 2 hours of anesthesiologist. That they have to pay for the extra 2 hours of anesthesia if it goes over 5 hours, that kind of thing, right? Which is a pretty messed up thing to, I mean, I pay horrific insurance premiums for the two of us, and suddenly they're paying off all of a sudden. But you know what I mean? It's like, that's just low. And when you see some of these insurance company guys, and they're talking about their profit margins, and it's, well, I was thinking of credit card people actually with 50% profit margins. But in any event, I can see how that would make you murderously angry. And I get murderously angry about things, but I never call for the murder of people, because that's the difference between me and a lot of these left-wingers. The most on the nose I'll ever get would be for me to say, if Barack Obama had fallen down the stairs and while he was president, then that sure would have been a shame. It's pretty different than saying, no, I think we need to murder more of these people. And you can have both of these things. You can have insurance company CEOs doing reprehensible things. I'm not saying this guy did, but let's just say that he did. Doing absolutely reprehensible things. And there are remedies for this short of celebrating his murder. And this is the thing about the left, is they just have no emotional control at all. They just, again, it's a projection thing, and it's a narcissistic thing. But this calling for the murder of insurance company CEOs and how this is a good start, and and all the rest of it, it's like, no, this is you're celebrating murder. If it turns out that you have such a problem with how this guy's running the company, then this should be something you should be bringing up in the press or suing for. You don't murder people. I never called for the murder of anybody, and I would have been absolutely aghast if Barack Obama had been assassinated, or Joe Biden, or even Hillary Clinton, who I despise, in that order, by the way, who I despise. But I'm not rooting for Hillary Clinton to be murdered. I just hate her guts. I just hate her, passionately hate that woman. But if somebody said, somebody's out there to murder Hillary, and you can stop them, but you didn't even call the hit. Just somebody's about to bump her off, and you can make a phone call and stop it. I would make the phone call. That's just what I would do. I wouldn't celebrate making the phone call, but I'd make it. I'm serious about that. That's an interesting, some of these thought experiments. We did the right angle a month ago on the trolley car thought experiment. If the trolley car's out of control, running down the hill on the rails, and it's about to hit one person or five people, but you can throw a switch. If you throw a switch, it'll only hit one person. Do you throw the switch or not? And my attitude to that is, that's not for me to decide. I'm not going to play this game, because this game ends up with you killing 500,000 people to save 500,001 people. That's how the math works. The answer isn't to kill the one person. The answer is to say, hey, get out of the way. I reject the premise. It's the Kobayashi Maru scenario, and I'm reprogramming the computer. I'm not going to play it. So it's kind of the same thing here, If you had the ability to make a phone call to stop the murder of Hillary Clinton, would you do it as a conservative? And I think the only answer is yes, I would stop it. I think that's the only answer, because once you go down that road, there's no turning back. This is how you end up with firing squads, and how you end up with the left-wing revolutions always end up eating their own, Trotsky is killed by the revolution, and Bukharin is killed by the revolution, and Kamenev is killed by the revolution, and Zinoviev is killed by the revolution, and they're all killed by the revolution that they started. And the only way that you don't go down that road is if you refuse to kill people, period. No matter whether it's good for you politically or not, no matter whether the person deserves it or not, you just don't do it. No, it's beyond the pale. It is out of bounds. You just don't call for the murder of people. You can hate them. I think you'd have to be nuts not to hate these people, and when you see what they're trying to do to the country and to good people everywhere. Well, that's it's hateful. It's like, of course it's hateful. Yes, I hate them. I hate them. I really do hate them, but I don't want them dead. I don't wish for their murder. I just wish they'd go away. Fiery Waco says, but if I had to choose between saving Hillary Clinton and a ham sandwich, I know which I'd choose. Now, of course, you come to the crux of the matter here, Waco. If somebody said, if you got to make a phone call to save Hillary Clinton, and I was in the middle of making a ham sandwich, then I would certainly call to save Hillary Clinton, but I might not do it right at that exact instant. I might have to finish making the sandwich, wiping off the mustard or the mayonnaise on the edge of the bread and having a bite, and then I'd go to make the phone call right after I ate the ham sandwich, because as Dave Big Boutte points out, it's a sin to waste food, and I wouldn't want to be a sinner. But yeah, walk away from Omelas. There you go, Steve Young. Those who walk away from Omelas, that's it, man. There's no. Once you start playing the sacrifice this for that game, it's over. Once you start playing this is the greater good, so if we have to kill 20 people to save 100, then that's what we do. Then it's like, no, I reject the premise. Save them all. Save them all. Save both groups. I reject the premise. I'm not going down that road. Anyway, hope that did it for you there, Eli. Marusha Dark, topic, last minute scramble. On the off chance you didn't get to look at this after the show last week, Bill, I know you talked about Hunter's pardon in two right angles already, but one thing not touched on is the fact that Donald Trump was impeached for pressuring Ukraine to go after Hunter for his very crimes the father just pardoned. No one seems to be interested in asking what was Hunter doing in 2014. On the contrary, I think everybody knows what Hunter was doing. Save the ham. I think everybody knows what Hunter was doing. I think everybody knows that the pardon was as wide and as broad as it was because of the spectrum of Hunter's guilt, and I think also that Biden was pardoning himself. I'll come back to that in a second. I just want to get to the super chat. Lapco92 again says, I love how we can get an estimate for pretty much any transaction other than healthcare. Plus, you can't go in and say, I'd like $800 worth. No, that's because the government and monopolies are involved. It's the worst of both worlds. It's the perfect storm of suck. If healthcare for humans was treated the same way as automobile insurance, we'd all live in a much better world. Okay, so what was Hunter doing in 2014? And now Biden is looking to pardon Fauci, Liz Cheney, and Adam Schiff. Well, he will or he won't. I guess we'll see. Trump's counterplay was a call on Congress not to approve any more of Biden's justice appointments. I guess if there's a question here, it would be, doesn't pardoning someone sort of admit to the fact that they committed a crime in the first place? Yes. Yes. I was surprised to hear Joy Reid, of all people, make this point to Bill Clinton's face when Sonny Hostin asked him if Biden should pardon Hillary. Why is the right so bad at pulling things back out of the memory hole? Because we like to be left alone, and we like to leave people alone. Not that it matters at this point, but just as an object lesson, I'm not saying it's a good thing, mind you, it's just the explanation. But just as an object lesson, every time on the topic of Kamala's record as a prosecutor came up, I kept begging Team Red to bring up the primaries. How Tulsi destroyed her by talking about Kamala locking up innocent black men on weed charges and then burying evidence of their innocence. I agree. That should have been front and center the whole time. Thank God. If we'd lost it, it would have been criminal. That lost her the primaries and should have made any mention of her record a liability rather than an asset. So I ask again, why does everyone seem to have the memory of a goldfish? Well, probably because we got the brains of goldfish. I mean, I'm trying to get to the core of the answer here. I don't know. I'm thinking I would make a phone call if I could stop Hillary Clinton from being murdered, but if I could make a phone call that would start FBI proceedings into her illegal activities, I'd make that phone call too, because I'd like to see her in jail. And a thorough investigation into the background of Hillary Clinton might very well turn up actual murder charges. I would not be surprised. I'm not saying that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised. So, Trump could have gone after Hillary. He said he didn't do it because he thought it was good. It would be bad for the country. I agree with him on that count. The question is, was that the right decision? I kind of think it was the right decision. As much as I'd like to see Hillary Clinton brought to justice, I keep coming back to this idea of divine justice, God's justice. There is nothing that could be done to Hillary Clinton that would be worse than what she went through and continues to go through on a daily basis. We've talked about, and we've all had cheerful little moments of schadenfreude, which I am perfectly in favor of. I don't have any problem with schadenfreude whatsoever. I think it's you'd have to be inhuman to not experience that. So throughout everything after the 2016 election, I kept thinking, oh man, this has got to be burning Hillary. He's really got to be chapping her butt that she's having to watch this guy be president and doing all these awesome things. But then I also realized, can you imagine how badly it must have chapped her to watch Kamala Harris as the candidate? Because there's a lot of things, there's so many negative things you can say about Hillary Clinton that there's just not enough time left in the universe to get them all on paper. But she's a lot more capable than Kamala Harris. And for Hillary to watch Trump beat her, and then to watch this idiot Biden become president, and watch him go 4 years without knowing what day it was, and then to watch Kamala Harris become the presumptive nominee, to become the nominee, she must have been, that's 3 times she's been boiled in oil of of her own manufacture. She's just been cooking in her own juices, man. Whoopsie, that's loud and late. Sorry about that. Dave Drill Area 51 says the fact that Hillary Rodham Clinton will never be POTUS is enough punishment. God will take it from there. That's exactly how I feel about it. I just can't imagine anything that will be more unbearable for this unbearable woman than having to watch all of this stuff. Left at the altar. Yep. Yes. I hope it stings every day. And because Kamala Harris called Donald Trump a fascist, I hope she gets the same treatment. I hope she just sits and apparently, by all accounts, this is exactly what happened. Both Hillary and Kamala apparently lost the election and went out on benders and have been drunk for 5 weeks. Eric Blake says the fact that to this day Hillary whines about losing the 2016 election every chance she gets. Yeah. Ding dong, witch is dead. Ding dong, wicked witch is dead. I don't mind the phone dinging, adds a sci-fi atmosphere to the show. Okay, cool. Anyway, but your larger point on the question, is we shouldn't be so forgetful. Really, and I get the feeling that Donald Trump is not going into term 2 the way he went into term 1. Like, okay, well, I'm going to let her go. I think here's what I think. I think the thing that changed history, and I'm thinking about doing a hot mic just on this one subject. And I think this Ray can take this with him into the history books. I think what changed history, the thing that the moment that history turned, was the Mar-a-Lago raid. I think the Mar-a-Lago raid was the single stupidest thing that the left has ever done, and that's a high bar to clear. But I'm pretty sure that that is the dumbest thing that they ever did, because Trump was understandably, as were all of us, bitter and had been defeated. Been defeated in court. He'd had to watch Joe Biden sworn in. He was angry and stung, and everybody was angry and stung, and it looked like he was going to kind of just eat it. And then the next thing you know, they're kicking in doors at Mar-a-Lago, and everybody all of his supporters were immediately electrified. I was incensed and furious. I know you were too. And that's when the middle started to pay attention. That's when the middle started to realize, I don't like this guy Trump, but this is ridiculous. And that's when they started to get red-pilled. It was the dumbest thing they've ever done, and I hope that they realize it, and I hope that that they pay for it. Wesley Bruce with a super chat from our friends down in the land down under, back in the lucky land. The term Friends of Jeffrey Epstein party is sticking. Yeah. Friends of Jeffrey Epstein and Friends of P. Diddy. They're demonic, brazen awfulness just knows no bounds. So, yeah, the mugshot said everything. It was Trump versus the man. And when smartest thing Trump ever said is, they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, I'm just in the way. That was the ultimate Donald Trump quote, because I think that's exactly right, and I think that resonated with people. Thank you for that. And looks like Dennis Nelson in the YouTube stream says, be sure to like the chat. Be sure to like the stream. So please do like the stream. If you're watching the stream now, if you could just reach up and press that like button, that would be great. If you're not a subscriber, if you're new here, we do fun things and talk about all kinds of cool things all the time. Plus we have shows and fun stuff coming up. So love to have you subscribe as well. We picked up several thousand subscribers during the election run-up. So that was nice. Okay, moving on to Eric Blake. Let's see what we got after that. We got a Steve Young, and that's it. Then we got probably 2 hours to kill. 1 hour to kill. Which will kill. We will go to the comment section. Doing it. We're going there. Oh, and Natasha and I watched a series called Dark Matter, which was not awful at all, really. It had some very, very interesting kind of ideas. I never did look up the assassination curse. I'll click on the link so I have it available. I can read it while I'm posting our backstage show. Curse at Tippecanoe. Tippecanoe and Tyler 2. 4840 or bust. And various other campaign slogans from the distant past. All right, here we go. Tonight, the case of the decrepit duck. So, Bill, in a recent trifecta, right angle, Steve Green called the show Trifecta, which was shocking. It's been 14 years, something like that, 15. A brief debate arose over Sloppy Joe being a lame duck. Specifically, you said, I don't even think he's a duck. Well, it's been recently revealed that for all conservatives talk about Joe supporting Trump in retaliation for the Democratic coup against him, he's now trying to auction off the remaining parts of the border wall. Can only be described as an act of pure spite, as if he wants one last win over the guy who ultimately did beat him. Besides, as Obama said, never underestimate Joe's ability to F things up. In other words, he may not be a duck, Bill, but he's certainly a quack. Am I right? I hadn't heard about Biden auctioning off parts of the border wall. I don't know if he has the presidential power to do that. If he does, then look, compared to a Ford-class aircraft carrier, the construction of the border wall is not a difficult piece of work, and it's not an expensive one. It is essentially very large steel sections that are planted in the ground. This is not rocket surgery. That wall can go up as quickly as we want it to go up. And I think more to the point, I'm not saying I don't want the wall. On the contrary, I want the wall real bad. But the caravans are turning around. And not only are they turning around, there's evidence that illegals in America are deporting themselves ahead of the police deporting them. So there's a net outflow now, apparently, of illegal immigrants to the country, which is what happens when you enforce the law and say you're going to do it and then do it. So, there you go. That would be fantastic. I don't doubt that he's got enough spite to do a bunch more damage within the limits of his constitutional powers. I think Joe Biden, I hope, I doubt it. I really doubt it. I've seen dementia and Alzheimer's up close. I don't think that Joe Biden has, in the last 2 or 3 years, in fact, I don't think during his entire presidency, Joe Biden has ever been lucid enough to really appreciate just how embarrassing and out of it he really is. But if you look at Joe Biden from 2008 or 2012, it's not the same guy. I mean, doesn't even really look like the same guy. Maybe it's not the same guy. But I don't think he. The perfect justice for Joe Biden would be the same justice that Hillary Clinton. We just spoke about with Hillary Clinton. Perfect justice for Joe Biden would be Joe Biden having a moment of lucidity, realizing that he's been this papier-mâché puppet that has been, pooping his pants and stumbling off of stages and not being able to finish sentences. And just, I would like Joe to have a moment of clarity to realize just how embarrassing he's been as a president. But, I don't think there's much question that he's going to be on the list of the 3 worst presidents in U.S. history. And that's the kind of fame he deserves, frankly. Tranquility Base USA, which is an awesome name. And Twitch says, saw Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick on Fox this morning. He said that Texas, would buy all the wall surplus and give it to Trump. LOL. That would be epic. Biden, Woodrow Wilson, and James Buchanan. Exactly. I think you got it. I think Eric nailed it. Biden, Woodrow Wilson, and James Buchanan. Jimmy Carter just comes in as a firecracker. He wasn't. Jimmy Carter was a terrible president, but he wasn't acid. He wasn't acid attacking the foundations of the country. He was just, out of his league, naive, and not a good cheerleader for the country. He can sell all the wall he wants to. I don't see how the president has the power to, because that's not private property. Well, that's why he get rid of it, I guess. Do whatever you need to do, Joe. Whatever you need to do, you just go ahead. Now, as far as the presidents go, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are Woodrow Wilson, Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Roosevelt, Lyndon Johnson, and Barack Obama. Those four Democrats have done more to destroy this country than all of the enemies of this nation combined times 1,000. They were, those four really, really hurt this country. All right, here's the last one on the forum as we approach we're only 1 hour and 45 minutes. We still got an hour and 15 to go, so we're going to have to do some freestyling here. Hooray. Steve Young, happy Friday the 13th. Well, it is Friday the 13th. How about that? If China militarily attacks American interests in the Pacific Rim, can or will the U.S. nationalize all Chinese assets in America and default on all of our debt to that country? China has no money. Isn't it all American money? I'm glad you asked me about China. This is why... obviously a major... See, you can't even talk about a major war with China, because a major war with China, an all-out war with China, would be a full-scale thermonuclear war. And I believe that these are just off the table, that full-scale civilizational level wars like World War I or World War II, I just don't think they're... I think that atomic weapons, nuclear weapons, have taken civilizational level war off the table. And I'm going to stand by that. Everybody's terrified of nuclear weapons. Oh, we need to get rid of them. It's like, no, we need to keep them here and be terrified of them. That's the entire point. That's why we've had, on a macro scale, world peace. That's why we haven't had, a 30 years war, 100 years war. We haven't had, World War III. Didn't happen because these weapons are here, and they're so terrible that there is no win. There's no win. So when you talk about a war with China, how far would that war go? I don't think... I think the greatest... in fact, I don't think this. I know this. I don't think I know this either. No, my background in history tells me that the single greatest cause of war, major wars, is misunderstandings, miscalculations. Without a question, that's what caused the Ukraine war, which is the biggest war we've seen certainly in Europe, since World War II. Vladimir Putin genuinely believed that he'd have Kiev in a week, and that the war would be over in 2 weeks. He genuinely believed it. He had been so misled by his generals in terms of his own capabilities and what the Ukrainian resistance was, and then the Ukrainian national mood, that it was a first order misunderstanding and just plain counterfactual worldview. And this is what causes problems. So uncertainty is what leads to warfare. And so if you believe that, which I do, then that would tend to logically follow that certainty about things prevents warfare. We need to come out. I really believe this. I think the United States needs to do exactly, and I love the wording of it too. I thought the wording of it was perfect. When they put the nuclear missiles in Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis, John Kennedy said that any attack from Cuba upon the United States would be considered as a direct attack by the Soviet Union upon NATO. Got that? Nikita, you got that? You don't get to say, well, we didn't launch that attack, Cuba launched the attack. No. Any weapons, any nuclear attack on the United States from Cuba will be considered to be a direct attack by the Soviet Union upon the United States and NATO. And so it didn't happen. And in fact, that statement is what caused Khrushchev to pull his missiles back out. We need to make a same statement with regard to Taiwan. I've never understood this one China policy. I've never ever understood it. Why we kowtow to these Chinese. I think the United States needs to say Taiwan is an ally of the United States of America, and an attack on Taiwan will be considered an attack on the United States. And the reason I say we say that is not to get us into a war, but to keep us out of one. To keep us out of one. That's how this thing works. This is the fun thing about being a hawk. You know, everybody assumes that you're always interested in just all you want to do is just fight wars from your keyboard. It's like, no, I'm a hawk because this is the best way to prevent wars. If you make a statement like that, China's going to go nuts. But China will not be able to do the math on making a Taiwan invasion stick. They won't be able. They know that if we mean it, then they can't possibly take Taiwan. We'd sink their invasion fleet in the Straits of Taiwan. Our U.S. submarines. We wouldn't even need air power. Just U.S. submarines could put an end to that Taiwan invasion. There's nothing they could do about it. And so the way to prevent the invasion of Taiwan is to say, if you invade Taiwan, then we're going to consider an attack on Taiwan as an attack upon the United States. This is exactly why North Korea hasn't reattacked South Korea. Because in order to attack South Korea, North Korea would have to kill American troops in the DMZ. That's why we have them there. That's the whole tripwire theory. And it's a great theory. It works. It works. If these lunatics, because that's what they are, the Chinese leaders are kleptocracy, and they're nuts. Putin is nuts. He's a dictator. Xi is a dictator. Kim is a dictator. All the Kims are dictators. Dictators get told what they want to hear by the people below them who want to stay alive and who want to climb the ladder. So they are delusional lunatics. By definition, Saddam Hussein was a delusional lunatic because he scared the living crap out of everybody, which is what you have to do to be a dictator. So he got told what he wanted to hear. America's never going to get in the fight. No, there's no way America would invade, come to the rescue of Kuwait. Just go ahead and go in there. They're not going to do anything. Wrong. America's not going to fight a war in the Pacific just because their fleet was sunk at Pearl Harbor. They'll call it quits, and America will retreat to the West Coast, and we Japanese will take Hawaii, and we'd even be willing to give them Hawaii back so long as we had Southeast Asia and all the rubber and the oil and all the rest of it. There's no way they're going to fight their way across the Pacific and attack the Japanese homeland over Pearl Harbor. Wrong. You know, wrong. And if the United States had said any attack on Pearl Harbor or any American installation will result in the full-scale destruction of Japan, and we'll fight for as long as, then they probably wouldn't have done it. Hitler, on the other hand, was a different kind of nut. Hitler was going to invade the Soviet Union. There was no deterring him from that. He was just going to do it, and that's that. Marisha says, delusional lunatics might risk pushing the button. I don't think they would. And the reason that I don't think they would is because the ultimate quality of delusional dictators is their narcissism. This is why I think the world is a different place now. Take Vladimir Putin. Is Vladimir Putin going to push the nuclear button? If Vladimir Putin pushes the nuclear button, the first person that's going to die is Vladimir Putin. Same thing goes for Xi. Same thing goes for Donald Trump or Barack Obama, or whoever else you want to put in the White House. I mean, the president of the United States cannot just simply launch a nuclear attack because he feels like it, no matter what the left says about that. Obviously, that's just not a possibility. There is no mechanism by which the United States launches a first strike nuclear attack. It's just simply not possible. It is an impossible thing. And so you say, well, what if the Soviets or the Russians launched a nuclear attack, or the Chinese launched? They're lunatics. You just said they're lunatics, Bill. Why don't they push the button? Because if they push the button, that is the death of them. That's the thing about nuclear war. It means the big red button electrocutes you when you push it. It tends to focus the mind, you know? It tends to focus the mind. Same thing's true for Iran. We don't let Iran have a bomb because radical Islamists would nuke the world to get to heaven, Marusha says. Now, that is a genuine concern. But even then, I'm not convinced that that the mullahs are that delusional. I'm not willing to risk it. I think they're the most dangerous regime on the planet. Roadrunner says the same thing. I can imagine a radical Islamic government pressing the button if they get operational nukes. Yeah, I can kind of imagine that too. Because their reward system is not on this earth. Vladimir Putin's reward system is on this earth. It's power and glory and territory. Same for Xi, same for Kim. Kim and Xi and Vlad all want to stay alive. But if you've got somebody that's convinced that the reward is in the next life, that is a very dangerous person. Then you can't play the intention game. You got to play the capability game. If they have the capability, you pretty much got to assume that they're going to use it, and that's why God invented airstrikes. Yeah, Roadrunner says the problem with nukes is that the fate of the world depends on the least rational government. But yes, but the least rational government is still an organism that wants to survive. The button is the suicide button. And the only regimes on the planet that I can think of that are suicidal would be some of these Islamic regimes. Marusha says, imagine a dirty bomb goes off in Jerusalem. You can't tell me the world isn't getting dragged into a global religious war. I can tell you it's not going to get dragged into... Well, I can tell you it's not going to get dragged into a global religious nuclear war. If a dirty bomb goes off in Jerusalem, then what's going to happen after that? A nuke's going to fly. Thank you, John. Once again, John Eden with his $99.99 super chat just never ceases to amaze me, and we're very, very grateful. Thank you. What about EMP? Now, EMP is a different story, but an EMP attack on the United States would cause the death of millions. A successful EMP attack would cause the death of millions. And yeah, I suspect that an EMP attack, again, an EMP attack on the U.S. is, if not pushing the button, then it's certainly chipping around at the edges of the button. EMP is an interesting scenario because it doesn't deal with direct fatalities. But if you took out the electrical grid for a third of the country, you're going to have lots of people are going to die as a result of that. Not as many as they would if they had full-scale thermonuclear war toe-to-toe with the Ruskies. But that would be an act of war that would be that would require a remarkable response. And by the way, I'm not saying that it's impossible to imagine a world where we see a tactical nuclear weapon used. I'm just saying it's impossible to see a world where... I know people say once the genie's out of the bottle, they put a tactical nuke on the ground in Ukraine, and then what does NATO do? You know, but I just look. I know it sounds incredibly naive, but I feel like I'm coming from a fairly solid position here, having done the Cold War and an Empire of Terror, and looked at I spent a lot of time looking at the opportunities that there were during the Cold War to end the planet, and it never happened. Even when it was ordered to happen, which happened twice, where direct orders were given to launch nuclear weapons and end the world, both times those orders were not followed, in both cases, those men were certain that it would cost them their lives to not follow those orders. But both times they just said, "No, I'm not going to be the guy who ends the world. I'm not going to be the guy." And even apparently, I've heard the story anecdotally, but Reagan was asked after he left office if the Soviet Union launched a full-scale thermonuclear attack on the United States, would he have retaliated with everything we had? And anecdotally, as I've heard the story, Reagan said, "No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have done it. I'm not going to destroy the other half of the world." So, but you can't be sure about that. That uncertainty there is what complicates their targeting solution. Darth Chuck the Merciless says some parts of the U.S. military knew Syria was going to fall when it did. They had B-52, A-10, and other unusual for supporting Israel tasks headed to the Middle East weeks before they were used to flatten all the Syrian ship missiles, tanks, aircrafts, and factories. It wasn't even a large portion of the USAF. No, we don't need much to swing. We swing a pretty big hammer here. Yeah, basically he goes on to say the entire Syrian military was destroyed in a day. That's the power of the West. And Israel is part of the West in this regard. That's the power of the West. And we cower in front of the Chinese, and we cower. And Vladimir Putin says, this might lead to nuclear war with NATO. It's like, okay, Vlad, bring it on. Once again, Trump is in the, and the reason I say, come on, Vlad, bring it on, is not because, oh, you're really going to get us into nuclear war. It's like, no, that's how you stay out of nuclear war. If he thinks he's got you scared, then he's got incentive to try and finagle that bluff. You call the bluff immediately, then it's off the table. Yeah, my response, good job, now do Iran. Now do Iran should be Donald Trump's foreign policy. Now do Iran. Our friend Wesley Bruce from Australia says Putin will die in a bunker after discovering the big red button doesn't work and then wondering why the phones are cut. Yeah. And that's the other thing too. You could even get to the point where, let's say Putin's got cancer and he decides he's going to take the whole thing down in a blaze of glory. Well, Vladimir Putin is not walking up to the basis of all of his strategic nuclear missiles with a Bic lighter and lighting the fuse on the bottom of those things. He can order a first nuclear strike against the United States, but no one's going to carry out that order. The people that would have to launch the missiles, including the generals, have families too. This is why I'm convinced it's off the table. Let's say that Putin just does it. He just says, I've decided that's it. We're going to nuke NATO. Launch the missiles. Who's going to launch them? Who's going to launch them? Nobody's going to launch them. Because if they launch them, that's the end of them, that's the end of their families, that's the end of their dachas, that's the end of their yachts, that's the end of their it just doesn't make any sense. The game in the world now is, how far can you go conventionally? And Putin has shown us you can go pretty much all the way conventionally and get away with it. And when I say get away with it, I mean not have it escalate to nuclear confrontation. I mean, this Ukraine war is a massive. Russia's lost 6,000-7,000 tanks or something along those lines by now. At least 100,000 killed. These are World War II numbers. But it hasn't escalated despite his saber rattling, and I just don't think there's a win in it. I'm not saying that crazy people won't do anything to win. I'm just saying there's no win on the board here. And I don't know that I've heard too many people talking about this. You would think that this would be much more of a discussed topic. Is the world a fundamentally different place since nuclear weapons? The answer is yes, of course it is. And we should be, our diplomacy should be structured accordingly. Tranquility Base says, I hate that Biden left so much of our high tech in Afghanistan. I don't mind losing the trucks, the Jeeps, the Humvees. I don't mind losing the airplanes. I don't mind losing the weapons. I don't mind losing any of it. The thing that kills me about what we left behind was we left 16,000 night vision. Oh, that's the rest of your question. I'm most concerned about how the U.S. was the night fighting king of the night with our night vision tech, of which Biden left thousands of copies behind to be reverse engineered. Not just reverse engineered, but distributed. We left 16,000 sets of night vision goggles in in Afghanistan. We should have put an airstrike on wherever those things were the second we got out of there. Before we got out of there. It's incredible. The scale of the incompetence, the military incompetence, is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I don't know. I don't want to carry this into the ground, but since we still got a little bit of time, we got another 55 minutes to go on our 3-hour tour. Marisha says, Bill, I hope you're right, but the problem is if you're wrong, the world dies, and I would be wary of how certain you are about this. It only takes one critical failure. One critical failure for what? I mean, you can't... The ability to launch a nuclear attack is... A full-scale nuclear attack is not one critical failure. That's the whole purpose of failsafe. It's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. The worst case scenario that I could possibly imagine would be if somehow one missile base were to get everything off the ground, and you were looking at what, 12 missiles maybe, with possibly 25 or 30 MIRVs, then you got a real bad day, but that's not the end of the world. A real bad day. You got a 30 million dead day. But it's not the end of the world. So, Eric Blake says, hey, Bill, apparently Trump is talking about pushing to end daylight savings time. So which would you prefer, fixing it with the late sunset or the early sunrise? I would like to stay on summertime, please. Summertime. It gets dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock now, and it's just nuts. And by the way, as I'm sure everyone's aware, the sensible time adjustment would be to do things the other way around. It shouldn't be spring forward and fall back. It should be spring back and fall forward. Spring forward and fall back, fall forward and spring back. That's what it should be. We make it dark earlier when it's getting dark earlier anyway. I think it'd be great to get rid of. I would stay with daylight savings time. I think daylight savings time is great. I kind of like it being dark getting dark around 8 o'clock at night in the middle of the summer. It would mean it would get dark at 6 o'clock at night in the winter instead of 5 o'clock. That seems perfectly reasonable to me. So I think it's a great idea. Okay, I was going to add something about China, and that is I've been looking at a lot of Chinese videos lately, and China seems to be falling apart, man. I mean, Beijing and Shanghai, these cities are deserted, and graduates are coming out of school with master's degrees, and they're having trouble finding jobs as food delivery people. This Chinese miracle is over. I mean, I can't believe the level of dysfunction I'm seeing coming out of China. And all these people, China's the future. I never, ever bought that. I never did. And I think it's less likely now than it's ever been at any point in history. Their manufacturing base is gone. Natasha likes crystals very much. She just really loves them. And I saw on Facebook an ad for a crystal mug that was cut out of green quartz. And it wasn't super high quality quartz, but you could see they would fill it up with tea or coffee, and you could see the level of tea rising through the quartz. So I got one for her. And I opened the box, and it was a piece of plastic that had bumps on it and was painted green by hand. And I was like, okay, All right, well, congratulations. You got your $40 or whatever it was. It was probably ridiculous of me to assume that I could have gotten crystal for 40 or 50 or whatever the thing cost, but you got it. It is just plain horrific. It's not even it's not even close. And this is China's reputation. Tofu dreg buildings, tofu dreg aircraft carriers. This Type 3 characters, the Zhejiang or whatever it is, their flat deck carrier. That thing is supposed to have been gone out for sea trials 3 years ago now. It's still tied up to the dock. And even some Chinese military officials are basically saying under their breath, the thing is not designed to be a threat to the United States. It's designed to be a propaganda piece to keep the Chinese people from revolting. And boy, are the Chinese people revolting. No, it's designed to be propaganda. It's conventionally fueled, so you gotta pump oil into the thing to get it to go. It leaves black clouds of smoke because it's operating under diesel power. They can't get the catapults to work. We barely got the catapults to work on the Ford. And this is what happens when you're a copycat society. Yes, you get to make tremendous jumps, but you don't have the technological foundation or the engineering foundation, and you sure as hell don't have the operational or doctrinal foundation to run an aircraft carrier. There's only two countries in the history of the world ever knew how to run aircraft carriers, and that's the United States and Japan. And I love the idea that these little Japanese carriers can carry the vertical takeoff Lightnings, the F-35s, because now we'd be sailing out into the South China Sea with Japanese carriers as our allies instead of going up against them. That fight against Japan was the most epic. Clearly the collision between Russia and Nazi Germany on land between tanks was a mechanized, in terms of sheer mechanized destruction per acre. You're not going to beat that because the Pacific battlefield was half the Earth. But in terms of two civilizations going at it, there's never been anything like the United States versus Japan in the Pacific. Nothing like it. I'd love to see these little Japanese carriers with 8 F-35s on board. It's like I'd much rather have these people on my side than have to be fighting them. And I see these Chinese carriers, and I see them all of their deck crew wears the exact same colors as our deck crew, and they have the exact same gestures as our deck crew, and they do exactly the same thing in exactly the same order as our deck crew, except their jets can't take off with a full fuel load because the jump ramp, their first two carriers are ski jump carriers. Their Type 3 carrier, they've done some propaganda launches, but their catapults, they just don't have the jets. And even if they had the jets, even if we gave them, let's say we just gave China 3 carrier battle groups, including the Hornets, they don't have the training, and most importantly, they don't have the doctrine. They don't have the culture. They don't have the culture. A totalitarian state cannot let an 18-year-old park a $40 million jet within 6 inches of the side of the deck, and that happens on U.S. carriers all the time. It's just they can't do it. They don't have. It's not in their DNA. Tranquility Base says communist society cannot produce and originate ideas of engineering. It's why the USSR reversed the B-29 during World War II, and boy did they ever. They captured a number of B-29s landed on Soviet territory during the war, made emergency landings in the Soviet Union. They were captured by the Soviets. Stalin said, make an exact copy of this airplane. They took it apart rivet by rivet, cut the aluminum, re-riveted it together. And when they went to inspect it, I think it was wasn't the Su-2, it was the, Tu-2, Tupolev 2, I think it was. Absolutely 100% identical to the B-29 because it's made off of the B-29 parts. The B-29 is essentially just the jig for their Tu-2. But they actually when when Stalin said make a copy of this, they actually had the rudder pedals and they said Boeing on the rudder pedals, because when Stalin says make an exact copy, you don't argue with Comrade Stalin. You don't you don't second. Was it TU4? Sorry about that. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So here we go. Steering column still said Boeing. So did the rudder pedals. If you're a copycat society, you are always one generation behind the people you're copying. By the time you get your copy reverse engineered and in the air and tested and flying and work all the bugs out of your, backwards design. I got it. Hawk Asa Fendi says it's the Hawk TU4. Hawk TUI. Hawk TU4. Whatever. I don't know. And they still messed it up. Yeah. All right, so we got 45 minutes of fun till Daddy takes our T-Bird away here. So we got we said we'd deliver a 3-hour tour, and we are by God going to deliver a 3-hour tour. So I think what we'll do is we will go to the 2 live comment sections here and look for interesting questions and open this up to the public. We're going to throw open the gates of the temple and let all the riffraff in. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that culture. I'm a huge fan. It's not strange. They're very different, very, very, very different cultures. I'm an enormous fan of Japanese culture, but not a fan of Chinese culture at all. So, there you go. John Pershing, live stream for the next Starship launch, currently at 1:11. Yeah. I was disappointed, when they didn't catch Flight 6, when they said, you know what, we're not able to catch the thing. They announced it the second the stage separated, right? We're not going to be doing the catch on Flight 6. I just turned it off. It's like, Dave Big Booty wants to know, will the colonies be all CGI AI, or will there be live action actors? Right now, the plan is CGI AI. It looks as good as people. You don't have to build the sets. You don't have to build the costumes. You don't have to build the props. You just the things like motion capture, even that motion capture stuff now is becoming AI dominated. You don't even have to put on the damn suit anymore. You just film people walking, and the AI takes that, converts it to bone mapping positions, and it just becomes a motion capture file. So yeah, there's no way to do this thing with live action on any reasonable budget that I could think of. Here's a big story. Let's see. Lady Hawk says, our pro-feminist, not so honorable PM Castro, that would be Trudeau, Castro, has declared that the U.S. has once again missed the opportunity to have a female president. Yes, we did. Thank God for that. Trump beats women. He's beat 2 of them. Badly beaten 2 women. You could have had a female president if you'd run Condi Rice. I would have voted for Condi Rice. I would have voted for Condi Rice in 2012 above Mitt Romney. I would have cheerfully voted for Condoleezza Rice. There's a couple of women Republicans that I could be comfortable with as president. But the 2 that they picked were just miserable. AOC is the leading Dem candidate. If they run AOC in 2028, I would be over the moon. Keep sending these losers. That'd just be great. Patriot in the Dark with a super chat says, thanks for your video on paying the fines. I appreciated that. YouTube is gunning for me. Hoist the black flag. Well, thank you, Patriot in the Dark. A number of people said, no, you shouldn't eat the fine. You should just fight the fine. I agree. And I think I said it was a $10,000 fine. I think in retrospect, I think it was much closer to $1,000 fine. But in any event, they did. The attitude of the restaurant was, well, we like the bubbling martinis. Our customers like the bubbling martinis. They buy a lot of the bubbling martinis. We probably sell a fine's worth of these martinis in the space of a night, if not in the space of a couple hours. So yes, there you go. So thank you very much for that. So let's see, what do we got here? We still got 40 minutes. Come on, you guys can do it. Give me something, just anything. Come on, we're just gonna get a. We're gonna. And by the way, no more applause. I want snapping of fingers from now on. Anytime you guys see something you like, or comment section, there should be a snapping finger emoji. Steve Young, question. How often has Biden attended this morning's security briefing? I don't know. If there's an ice cream cone waiting for him, probably never. Yeah. I'm still looking for questions. Watch any of the movies we recommended on Monday? No, I did not. I didn't watch 1, 2, 3, which I promised to do, but I do claim that I had reasonable cause to be distracted over the last couple of days. Billy, you're trying to save your brain so after you're gone you can be a servo skull. Yes, I'd love to be a servo skull. I want to be put in a pickle jar just next to the Richard Nixon and the Ronald Reagan heads on Futurama. Then I can opine on all of this stuff. I got to take this seriously because I can't afford to lose any neurons. By the way, there's something to talk about. This is a thought that I had when I heard the diagnosis. So, but it's not about me. It's a related question. So when people have a stroke, they rupture a blood vessel in the brain, and significant amounts of brain tissue dies off. And so, let's say you have a stroke and it affects your face. Okay, and I've seen this. I've had a friend who had it, and my brother actually had a mini stroke, and it looks like half the face is melted because there's no control over the muscles of the face. Well, many people, and I think we heard this earlier in the comment section, recover from this, and it takes years, but they do recover from it, and my understanding is the reason they recover is because the brain is still sending out signals to control the muscles on the side of the face where there's dead brain tissue, and new neural pathways are actually created. This is the same case for people who've lost the feeling in their legs, or people who have to learn how to walk again after a stroke or after an injury. You can through practice and hard work and physical therapy, you can burn new neural pathways and regain control of your muscles using neuron pathways that didn't exist prior to the stroke, because the stroke, yes, the brain can rewire itself. Don Vickery got it. Very simple. Perfect. The brain can rewire itself. So my question is, if you have a brain obstruction or something that causes you to lose cognitive ability, could you not rewire that back by doing brain exercises? I mean, when you're trying to get motion back or expression back or so on, you constantly do physical therapy for that. But I'm wondering if you couldn't rewire yourself cognitive abilities that you might have lost if you constantly challenged your brain, if you did nothing but brain teasers all day. Long before I got the MRI thing, I was, there have been shows when I've come on here and I couldn't remember the name of Tom Cruise or somebody else like that. Neuroplasticity, that's a great term. I've been here thinking my God, what is the name of that guy who starred in Top Gun? The guy who was in Maverick, and it's like just freeze. And there's and there've been times when it's been kind of worrying to me. But lately, especially, I've been I just do memory checks all the time. I just check my memory all the time. And if I got time to kill, I'll just sit there and just start saying, how many countries can I name? And I can get more than half, which may not sound like much, but that's 110, 100. I could probably do 120 countries. And in fact, I might be able to get close to 3/4 of the countries. Africa's got a bunch of countries that I can't remember in the interior. I've got most of South America, but really I just start in North America, work your way down, and then just jump over, go through Europe, start in Scandinavia, work your way down. So, there you go. Man becomes more conservative as he regains brain function. Yes, with Fetterman. He had this horrible stroke. Fetterman is actually a very encouraging example, because when Fetterman was elected, he was out of it. Fetterman was just out of it. And he's like, you recover from stroke because of the term I've never heard before, but the second I heard it, it makes perfect sense. Neuroplasticity. You get it back. So, but you got to want to get it back. You can't just sit there. You got to want to get it back. I've heard a number of people say that as you get older, especially, you should be doing crossword puzzles, constantly challenging your brain to keep it fluid, because if it's use it or lose it. There's obviously that aspect of it. The Rough Ryan says brain function can be maintained and possibly improved by hand-eye foot coordination, mind games, small yet challenging math games, and accessing deep memory, like how many family members you can remember and what about them. Yes. Lapco92, yeah, you just wanted a few extra super chats. Here you go, LOL. Thank you. And then from Lapco again, and if you see nothing else of Hell's Club, watch the Electronic Streams Room at 13 minutes. It's 3 minutes, but has Hal, Bishop, Rutger, Gort, Robocop, Metropolis. That would be Maria, I think was the name of that robot. Yule, Terminator, C-3PO, Edgar, Wally, and more. Good Lord. It's amazing. Yes, Gummins points out that it's not too much cognitive ability for me to lose. That's the big advantage. And most people use 10% of their brains, they say. That's like, I dream of using 10% of my brain. If I'm lucky, I get the 3% of my brain. Let's see. Helen Armstrong has an interesting question. Bill, I feel 2 things will happen by June 25th. I hope there's a follow-up question to that, or a follow-up statement to that, Helen. And our first time I've said hello to Helen. Hello, Helen. Great to have you here in the YouTube stream. Because if there's nothing that comes after that, then I feel confident that 2 things will in fact happen by June 25th. In fact, probably many more than 2 things will happen by then. D.E. Vickery says, can I send you 500 copies of my facial expressions to be an extra in the colonies? Yes, I think that's an excellent idea. In fact, that is a grand idea, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Vickery. That is a great, 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 great membership tier for crowdsourcing. Send us your pictures. We'll train the AI, and you can be not just conceivably an extra, you could be a character. It'd be acted by somebody else, but, there you go. Dave Big Booty points out we're less than 18 months away from America's semi-quincentennial. July 4th, 2026. Yep, 250 years, quarter of a millennium. Hooray. Eric says he'd love to be a face model for the colonies. Well, we have our standards, Eric. Our voices, too. I don't know about the voices, possibly. I think the nice thing about this is, and one of the cost-saving things about the colonies is you could have now, I've done all the different characters in those 4 characters on the interview for Mace Mattingly, and a number of people said, well, we can tell it's you on all of them. But that's not because I'm not a professional actor. You could hire a professional voice actor who could play 5 different characters, the way they do on The Simpsons, basically, You just map it onto a different character and get the mannerisms different. So that's actually pretty impressive. Hey, Bill, says Eric Blake, look how Trump immediately had a backup nominee with Pam Bondi the day Matt Gaetz dropped out. Is it reasonable to conclude it was all part of the plan, or is it just a backup measure? I think the Matt Gaetz thing was very strange, and the only logical thing I've heard is that it's all just kind of maneuvering so that Ron DeSantis can appoint Matt Gaetz to fill Marco Rubio's seat. I think that's the only thing I can see that makes any sense. Now, it doesn't have to make sense, but it could just be plain, because it did look a little goat rodeo-ish, to be perfectly honest with you. But in any event, pulled it off. Can we use members forum for backstory of the colonies? Well, here's the thing, Rough Ryan. One of the great ideas about the colonies is this idea of not crowdfunding, but crowdsourcing so much of the lore. Where here's a solar system with these are the planets, and write some backstory for this. Here's the terrain. Name the features. Here's a map of the planet. Go ahead and name them and give them some kind of consistency. And then if you want to write a little bit of backstory, like here, this place is called Desolation Point because here's where in 2439 something, and that kind of thing is great. So when you think about Star Trek, the original series, you had 79 episodes. I don't know how many writers. If I had to guess, I'd probably say there were probably about 55, 60 writers, because people like D.C. Fontana a couple of other authors wrote more than one. I think the best written show in the history of television is The Twilight Zone, personally. I don't think that writing has ever been equaled. Yeah, so we got a lot of catching up to do when it comes to those kind of things. Gosh, I'm so used to wrapping up by now. When we run out of questions, I'm actually feeling a little embarrassed. On board the USS. This is the kind of shirt that This is what Shatner should have been wearing in Charlie X. Rod Serling was a misanthrope. Well, he was my misanthrope. I adore the guy. I thought he was great. Wesley Bruce says, I've been doing worlds on DeviantArt with backstories. That's cool. Twilight Zone and Trek had lots of writer overlap. That I did not know. David, thank you. David Zapatnik. Zapasnik. Sorry about that, David. Let's see. We watched, Natasha and I watched a series called Dark Matter that was actually kind of interesting about quantum world, where this guy enters this box that's quantum isolated. It's like Schrodinger's box, and they visit all these different worlds trying to find their way back home. I don't really want to get into it too much. It had a lot to think about. It wasn't like something where I just went, wow, amazing. But it wasn't bad. I saw a little bit of we watched the first episode of The Silo afterwards, and I just thought, I don't think so, no. I just don't think so. Oh, in Dark Matter. Dark Matter was pretty much exclusively free of political wokeness, except in one episode. In one episode, they found Chicago. There's multiple times when Chicago, the whole thing's set in Chicago, where Chicago's a wasteland. It's either the sun has gone nova, or it's frozen, or it's arid, or it's nuclear war or plague. All these different Chicagos. And one of them where it's a beautiful kind of a futuristic Chicago, where they go, oh, this is a more progressive Chicago. I'm thinking, oh, it's a more progressive Chicago. There'd be people living in the streets in human filth, and there'd be cardboard suburbs and slums extending all the way out to here if it was a progressive Chicago. But later that same episode, they came to a utopian world like some of these worlds in the colonies, and one of the things we're going to be dealing with is not only utopia but utopianism. But But it was just a beautiful Chicago with these incredible spires and the tallest, most beautiful building of them all. And they go into the bottom of this building and they go to this restaurant up at the top. They said, "Yes, it's right here at the top of the Obama Tower." I went, "Oh, thanks." I had to throw that in there, did you? Just that one line? Just had to get that one line in there? Now, he's from Chicago, and I get all that. But the Chicago, they usually name buildings after people that build them, not people who tax them. Yeah. What's my favorite movie or series that nobody's ever heard of? Let me think. Well, that should be easy. One of my favorite movies, strangely enough, and believe me, I did not expect this to be the case, but one of my favorite movies that was a big surprise for me that I really loved was a film called Black Dynamite, which was a blaxploitation parody. I just love Black Dynamite. I think it's just really, really funny and hilarious. Obviously Buckaroo Banzai, but that's well known. Bedford Incident is a great, great movie that very few people know about. Bedford Incident's a terrific film. Let's see, I'm trying to think. There's been a couple that Dark City was an interesting film. Gosh. I know there's a couple things just floating around on the outside of the campfire light there. I just can't put my finger on it. Was that vampire movie called Near Dark, which came out right after Aliens, and it had the woman who played Vasquez, and it had Lance Henriksen in it. I think was that Near Dark? With a bunch of vampires driving around in cars with the windows covered up with aluminum foil in the daytime. That was kind of unusual and weird. I really liked They Live. I thought that was kind of a cool movie. Jeanette Goldstein. Yeah. I like the Riddick series too. Yeah. They Live is a. I always liked Rowdy Piper. I always thought Rowdy Piper was just a cool guy. Now, Grandma's Boy, I did not see, but I got to know Joel relatively well for a while there during the Friends of Ape thing, who was also in Avatar. Joel's just the nicest guy in the whole world. Yeah, boy, we are packing the entertainment in here, aren't we? Just more entertainment than you can possibly get. Oh, let's see. Porky's. I have friends who were in Porky's. Porky's was made in Miami when I was down in Miami. Yeah, Porky's. Good Lord. Oh, my God. Porky's. Gosh. Boy, that brings back memories. Meatballs was a fun movie. We were talking about Meatballs the other day. With great speeches. I think we were talking about that on the backstage show. Come to think of it. Yeah, Meatballs. My God. Gosh, I know there's a couple little things. I mean, needless to say, this is not an unknown movie. It's one of the most famous movies of the time. But I just love Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I just love that movie. I just love that movie. I remember coming out of the theater for Ferris Bueller's Day Off and just thinking, that was just fun and cool and slick. And wow. Well, I don't think I've ever been out of things to say before, but I'm feeling kind of like out of things to say. Ferris Bueller. Bueller. I really want to push this thing to 3 hours, but I don't. On the other hand, I don't know if it's really worth doing if things falling flat on his face like it feels like it's doing. I think maybe we'll do a 2 hour and 39 minute tour, and then save the overtime for next time, because this frankly just feels like I'm just treading water, and I don't like this feeling. Usually got time runs out before I've got tons of stuff to talk about. This time I'm feeling like I don't know. Um, uh, yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. I think the spirit of the thing is the main thing. Um, Biden commuted the sentences of 1,500 people. Um, okay, I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm just feeling a little cooked, and I'm just feeling like I'm just spinning wheels. So um, we'll call it a night. You probably know by now, but this show is made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com, who keep the 2 hour and 45 minute tours coming. Um, and we're very grateful for every single one of them. Thank you for all of the kind words and encouragement and so on. I'm going to be just fine. And and I guess I guess peanut butter will be just a memory. I don't know. We'll see. Um, I would, it would. It's a shame that there's nothing like, you know, Chevron with Techron that you could just drink and clean the tubes out. Be kind of cool. Yeah, it's a 3 hour tour if you count the opening walk-in. Thank you, Eric. You made my day. Now I feel because we've been recording for 241, but we've been streaming for 302. So we did it. We did a 3 hour tour. Hooray! Praise Vectron. Thanks very much for joining us, guys. We'll say goodnight to our friends on Twitch first. Thanks for being here, Twitch. We'll see you guys on Monday for the Stratosphere Studio. Okay, YouTube. Thanks for hanging with us. And we will